Hello there and welcome to a video which I haven't really done for a long time, which is a rant video. Mainly because I don't really like doing rant videos, don't really like doing drama videos or anything like that. I prefer to just do things that I enjoy as opposed to doing things which I don't enjoy. However, very recently, what I mean by recently, I mean by 2 days ago as of recording this, Legend of the Sea Devils came out, and if you can guess by the title, it exemplifies everything wrong with the Chibnall era. Now, this isn't a scripted video, by the way. This isn't, it's going to be very spontaneous. It's going to be very amateur. I've even got a bit of a cough, which is why the visuals on screen is most likely going to be the time vortex, which I use in my Did You Know Doctor Who videos, because why not? But I really wanted to go through this because Legend of the Sea Devils managed to piss me off so much that I need to rant about it. I need to say something. I need to, explain my frustrations with this work, I guess you could say. Well, barely any work, really. It's had no effort put into it, no care whatsoever. But I digress. Let's just get on to the video. So Legends of the Sea Devils featured the return of the Sea Devils, which were a beloved enemy from Doctor Who's past. Now, truth be told, they've only appeared twice before, which was Warriors of the Deep in a Fifth Doctor story, which is considered by many as one of the worst Doctor Who stories ever made, and The Sea Devils, which was a Third Doctor story, which is absolutely fantastic. Well, I say absolutely fantastic. It's a really enjoyable serial. And there's certainly one of the more memorable because, of course, there is the picture of them rising up from the beaches, and, everyone knows that. Unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately, when it got announced they were returning, I must admit I was a little bit excited. Now, I didn't want to get too ahead of myself because this is Chibnall's era of Doctor Who, which has been an absolute disaster to say the very least. I think people were a bit too harsh on Series 11, if I'm perfectly honest. Series 11 wasn't great. It was kind of boring. It was very slow. Had a lot of problems. But all things considered, in hindsight, Series 11 is not as bad as what came afterwards. Series 12, pretty much a disaster. Very few episodes actually worked. I love the Haunting of Villa Diodati. That's a very good episode. I won't lie, that's actually a genuinely good episode. But one out of, 10 episodes? Not brilliant. Then came Flux, which was, well, let's just say 2 episodes were decent. And when I mean by decent, I mean by they are probably 5 out of 10 stories, which was ironically the 2 which fell out of place, which was War of the Centaurans and Village of Angels. Those 2 are actually okay-ish, whereas the rest was absolutely awful, But so far with these specials, we've had Eve of the Daleks, which I won't lie, Eve of the Daleks I have a bit of a mixed reaction to. I really like the idea. I really like a lot of the things that happen in it. It is a decent story. It is actually one of the better, 13 Doctor stories. However, and this is a big however, it was incredibly stupid. The Daleks were so dumb. They missed every shot, almost every shot, I should say. They weren't a threat. And there was a bit of a plot hole, which I don't know how many people noticed this, but they said that, I forgot who it was, the black guy. They said that he, he can't die anymore because if he does, then he's dead forever after 5 minutes or something like that. However, he died multiple times afterwards, I don't know if anyone else pointed that out, but I noticed that when I looked at some of the reviews, no one actually pointed that out, but I noticed it. But Legend of the Sea Devils. Now, this one, I thought, okay, maybe it won't be too bad. Maybe it won't be dreadful. And I think a lot of people had the same feeling, because I remember online, there was loads of people who were saying, it's not going to be dreadful, it's not going to be bad, it's not going to be as awful as it could have been. However, it came out, and let's just say the reaction to this episode is overwhelmingly negative, to say the very least. I've seen people give it 0 out of 10. I've seen people give it 1 out of 10. This is being torn apart. Even people who are defenders of the Chibnall era have sort of been a bit, it's not very good. Like, that's how bad of an episode it is. And why I think this exemplifies everything wrong with the Chibnall era is very simple. For starters, Chibnall has this obsession. He has quite a few obsessions, but this is one of the obsessions he has. He has this obsession with trying to cram everything in to a certain amount of time. And you can feel it when you're watching it. You can feel it. Like, you can just see, like, he's trying to forcing this point. He's like obsessed with trying to have like 50 friggin' like plot points. And he's obsessed with trying to shoehorn it into like a 45-minute episode. Now, this wouldn't be so bad if, say, you were serializing it. You know, one of the things that the classic era did was it serialized stories. It would be like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. They'd all be 25 minutes, unless you count the Sixth Doctor, where they were 45 minutes. And I wouldn't lie, like, the more I've been thinking about it, the more I think serialization is probably a decent way to go. However, as we saw with Flux and with terrible individuals like Chris Chibnall, you get everything crammed in at once with no thoughts, no effort, and most of the plot points not actually going anywhere. Like, he'll add like so many characters into the story. He'll add so many characters into the story, so many monsters, so many moments, but nothing happens. Like, in this story, for example, there's a giant sea monster. It eats like 1 or 2 people. It eats the TARDIS, I think, at one point. I don't actually remember. It's been 2 days and I've already forgotten most of the story. Because I won't lie, the story was kind of boring, all things considered. It wasn't really that exciting either. You know, you'd think Sea Devil and Pirates, that might be kind of fun, but no, he manages to make that boring. But I digress. Like, there's a sea monster. He eats a person at one point, little fisherman. Now, I won't lie, I thought this was the, is it called the Micra from Warriors of the Deep? Maker, I don't know what you call it. And I thought, okay, that's kind of funny to see that thing back. But no, it really just appears and that's it. You don't see it or hear about it again. It was there. Now, how easy would it have been to have just cut that scene entirely and dedicate it to something more important? Like, you know, developing the Pirate Queen or adding a scene involving, you know, what was it, Dan just randomly not being with, you know, Vaz and the Doctor, you know. And you know why? Because Chibnall wants to add it in. You know, he's adamant to add this in, even though there's not a lot of time. Like, I have to wonder if anyone in the production team is actually saying to Chibnall, slow down a bit, just stop. You know, you need that clip of, you know, Gordon Ramsay saying, stop what you're doing, stop, you know. Tell him to stop and just think for a moment. Do you need that in? No? Take it out. Add something that actually has a point. I remember there's someone, it might have been Alan Moore, the comic book writer, the comic book illustrator, or comic writer, I should say, not illustrator, who's done Watchmen and Viva Vendetta, etc. And I believe he said something along the lines, it might not have been him, it might have been someone completely different, actually, it could have been Stanley Kubrick coming to think about it. Oh dear. This is a problem when you don't know who the source is from. But whoever said it, someone once said something along the lines of, if everything in a scene, like everything in the story, all the characters and all that have a purpose, then, you know, they need to have a purpose, basically. They shouldn't have no purpose. They shouldn't be just nothingness. And you shouldn't just add in scenes, or you shouldn't just add in characters that have no point to the story whatsoever. And instead, Chibnall does the opposite. He has to add characters. He has to add plot points which don't do anything, which don't further progress the plot. And as a result, you get moments like that giant sea creature, which I'm going to just call the Micro, because I think it is the Macro or the Micro, whatever it's called. I think it's that. because it doesn't have a point. And what's even weirder is that earlier in the scene, or maybe it was afterwards, I don't remember, and I just mentioned it earlier, Dan goes off with the kid who lost his father, well, the guy who lost his father at the beginning. And you don't see that happen. You just see, Phasmin and the Doctor go into the TARDIS and they bicker about, where did Dan go? I told him to stay and all that. And it just, you didn't see what happened to Dan. And then all of a sudden you see Dan with the kid. It's like, why can't you have just shown a scene where the Doctor tells him to stay put and instead, Dan wanders off and he, it's a very short, simple moment that you could have added without needing the giant sea creature. But that's not the only problem. The other problem is the CGI. The CGI in this is some of the worst I've seen ever. How is it that 2005, when Doctor Who was revived, has such better CGI compared to this? Hell, I'd even take the 1980s crappy, computer effects and CG effects, I should say, over this. The CGI looks really off throughout the whole of this episode. You have this moment where the Sea Devils are jumping up on the onto their ship, and it looks awkward. It looks like a PlayStation 1 game. Now compare this to End of the World from 2005, which had a lot of CGI, and the CGI looks pretty phenomenal, all things considered. I mean, yeah, it's not brilliant, but it's not dreadful. I mean, hell, take Father's Day from 2005 as well. Just take any episode from the first or the Revival era. Maybe not Rose, because Nessie didn't look very good, but take those episodes and look at the CGI in that compared to the CGI of the recent Doctor Who stories. Not just this one, but also, remember the CGI Daleks in the Flux episodes? The ones that looked so out of place and looked nothing like the actual Daleks. What the hell happened there? Even the statue cracking looked so awful. It's just, it's bad. CGI effects are awful. Cramming in too much plot is just a nuisance by this point. And, I mentioned serialization, but then Chibnall can't even do serials right. I mean, the Flux, for example, he decided to add in a million things at once, and barely anything actually got solved in the end. Barely anything got fixed. Barely anything actually was resolved. It was just, let's just cram everything in and let's end it at that. But no, he didn't even bother ending it. He just decided to add in a bunch of things, but then forget what to do with them afterwards. Chibnall's like a child playing with a sandbox, or playing with a toy box, I should say. And he just wants to pick out every single toy and play with it. He doesn't want to think, maybe I want to play with this toy and that toy. No. He has to play with Optimus Prime fighting Spider-Man or something like that. He has to have that. Oh, and then he also has to have, Sir Kill-a-Lot come along and fight them. And then maybe Godzilla, maybe King Kong, maybe a giant spider. That's what Chibnall's thinking is like. He has to add a million things at once. There's no thought or reason. There's nothing to it. And the dialogue as well in this is not brilliant. The dialogue comes across as rather pathetic, kind of cringy, all things considered. There's there's one moment as well I'm just thinking of on the top of my head, and I swear it's the same line that he's used multiple times in multiple different episodes, multiple different, stories that he's written, where a character kills a monster or creature, and the Doctor says, "You shouldn't have done that." How many times have you seen that phrase being done so many times? And it's such a pointless moment as well, because seconds later, Dan kills 5 Sea Devils in one go. Literally. Oh no, you shouldn't kill all of them. You shouldn't have killed them. You should just let it live. And then seconds later, 5 of them get killed and you blow up the entire fucking ship. You know, it's killing even more than 5, in fact, you know, after that. Oh, like, I don't know whether anyone noticed this, but obviously they had practical effects with the Sea Devil masks, but obviously the lips weren't moving that well, so they did this sort of like frog bulge thing. But they were using CGI for that, and it looks like one of those like really crappy like Photoshop, like people who can't use Photoshop properly, you know, when they warp photos, you know, whether it's a woman taking a photo of themselves and like the walls like wobble about. It looked like that. I don't know whether anyone else picked that up, but I did, and I thought, Jesus Christ. I wouldn't mind like maybe some like mouth movements, and you know, you get the light on the like the necklace with the light flashing. Like, I don't mind that. The Sea Devils felt wasted in this. Like they really did. For the main villains or the main enemy of this story, it didn't feel like they did much. Let's be honest now. And that's the same with a lot of the other Chibnall episodes, where the main villains of the stories don't feel like they do anything. You know, there's what's it called? Assad, the lone Cyberman, the one with half a face. Like, I remember he was like the main villain of like a few stories, and he didn't really feel like he did anything. The Master in Spyfall Part 1 and 2 felt like he was just there to be there because he's a memorable villain. God, the Sontarans and War of the Sontarans, they basically gave up after like one failure and they ran off. You know, it was like, it's weird. Like, a lot of these stories feel like they have villains where they don't do anything, even though the villains are like maybe in the title, maybe like the main focus. They feel like they're out of place almost. It's very strange. God, this should have been longer. Like, this should have been longer, and a lot of things should have been cut. Like, you could have cut a few characters out. And that's another thing, by the way. Another example of a guy sacrificing himself to save the Doctor. Like, the Doctor, you go, I'm going to sacrifice myself, I'm going to die, blah, blah, blah. We have that again. You know, the next time trailer for the supposedly the last 13th Doctor story, it worries me. And it shouldn't worry me, because Ace is returning. Ace is my favourite Doctor Who companion ever. And the fact that she's returning should be a happy moment. But instead, I feel terrified. Because I just know what's going to happen. I know she's not going to be Ace. She's not going to act like Ace. She's not going to behave like Ace. She's, obviously she's much older now. But at least with Sarah Jane, she's still acted like Sarah Jane. Even Joe Grant in Sarah Jane Adventures still acted like Joe Grant. But I know Ace ain't going to be Ace in this. I know Tegan won't be like Tegan. I know I can always predict what's going to happen in the next time. In fact, I'm going to make my prediction now. You see the Daleks and the Cybermen that were in the trailer? I'm betting you any money that they will only be in the story for like a few moments. And that's it. They're only there to be in the teaser, to be like, holy shit, we got Cybermen, we got Daleks, we got the Master, we got the Big Three. But they're not going to have any impact. I bet you any moment. I bet you anything. I bet you any money. I bet you absolutely everything. That's going to be what happens. Ace and Tegan, they're going to be pretty much like the Brigadier's daughter in Flux, where they're going to be there. It's going to be like, holy shit, it's Ace, it's Tegan. And they're not going to contribute much. They're just going to be there to be, hey, look, they've returned. Even Brigadier's daughter is going to be in this, and I bet you she's not going to do anything. I do forget her name, unfortunately. The Doctor is most likely going to have like a big revelation, like the Timeless Children shit. Without a doubt, that's going to be brought up. Some backstory or something like that. And I bet you anything that it's going to be controversial. I bet you anything people are going to be pissed off. The Master, he's just going to be there for exposition. he's not going to be there to actually do anything proper. He's just going to be there for exposition, and that's it. And it's going to be underwhelming as hell. Everything's going to be like on fast forward, where there's no time to just rest. We have to go through absolutely everything. Just like this latest one, Legend of the Sea Devils, which you might as well just watch Legend of the Sea Devils, by the way, if you haven't seen it already. Just fast forward it. I mean, that's how the story pace went. It just felt like it was on fast forward. There was no moment of slowing down or anything. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if someone sacrifices themselves at the end of this. I wouldn't be surprised if Thaz is the one who, you know, sacrifices herself. I wouldn't be surprised if she does that. I wouldn't be surprised if she kills herself at the end. Save the Doctor. And Doctor's going to be all emotional and regenerate or something like that. I would not be surprised if that happens. I'm going to obviously watch it, you know, even though I really shouldn't, because I don't enjoy Jodie Whittaker's era at all. I don't enjoy Chibnall's writing at all. But I'm going to watch it. I'm probably going to hate it. I mean, maybe it will be like Eve of the Daleks, where I'm actually, you know what, it wasn't that bad. It was okay-ish, but I don't really want to be one of those people that, like, shows too much support to something that is complete trash. You know, even when I did you know Doctor Who, and I thought to myself, I'm going to have to do 13th Doctor stories. I didn't really enjoy doing the Woman Who Fell to Earth, because if I'm perfectly honest, that, for one thing, there was hardly any information out there, because it's a more recent story, but also, I just don't enjoy rewatching her stories at all. There's never any incentive that you want to rewatch the stories, you know. Like, even when I do rewatch Doctor Who, or the modern era in particular, I only really rewatch, you know, the first season complete, because I love Christopher Eccleston's season. Series 2, I, like, watch half of it, the other half sucks, but one half is really good. Series 3, I watch, you know, most of it. Series 4, I watch all the way through. I love Series 4. Series 5, I watch, you know, once again, I watch, like, a few of them. Series 6, I skip because I hate Series 6. Series 7 has a few that are decent. Series 8, maybe the first 2 stories, that's it. Series 9, you know, Heaven Sent, there's actually quite a few good ones. Series 10, absolutely phenomenal. I love Series 10, but there are a few weak ones in the middle. Series 11, maybe the first one, that's about it. Maybe Resolution. Series 12, Spy 4, and Haunted Villa Daddy. And Series 13, I haven't really rewatched at all since it's come out. But, like, if that doesn't really show my thought process on Doctor Who, then, you know, I'd rather watch the classics. I will admit, I'm more of a classic fan than a modern fan. But, my God, Legends of the Sea Devils pissed me off big time. You know, like I said, if you haven't watched it, you might as well just press the fast forward button, because that's how the story went. It just went by like that. There was no time to breathe for a few seconds. There's no time to actually develop anything. There's no time to explain anything, because they just want to shoehorn in everything that you can imagine. That's about it. That's all that Chris Chibnall cares about. Which brings me on to one point which I made weeks ago. Months ago, technically. And this was around Eve of the Daleks. Maybe it was after Flux. And I made this post online. You know, if I can recall what I said, it was something along the lines of, Chris Chibnall is obsessed with trying to shoehorn himself into Doctor Who's history, to the point that he doesn't care if it undoes lore that has been, you know, in Doctor Who for well over 50 years. You know, almost 60 years. It doesn't matter if, you know, he inserts things which no one likes, because, hey, it's now part of Doctor Who's lore, it's now part of the Doctor Who history. Like, he had to make it the first female Doctor. There's already some history right there. But no, he couldn't stop that. He had to add stuff to the origins, which no one cared, no one asked, no one wanted. he had to, change things around. He had to, destroy Gallifrey again, wipe out the Time Lords again. He had to make all these changes, all these, forced in bullshit so that he can be in Doctor Who history, so that no matter where you go, no matter what you read, there's going to be Chris Chibnall's smear all across it. He only cares about one thing, and that's to be in the history books of Doctor Who, the Doctor Who history books, let's be honest now. He doesn't care if fans don't like it. He doesn't care if it goes against law. It doesn't care if it goes against the things that have happened in the past. He only cares about being in the history books. He only cares about having his fucking fat, ugly face all over the place. He doesn't care. And he knows that he can get away with it because he's the head showrunner. He can just do whatever the fuck he wants. And that's not to say that you can't do radical historical things. The Time War. The Time War from 2005 was a big event. And yet, it was done well. It was written well. It wasn't shoehorned in straight away. It was slowly spoon-fed and eventually gave way to a brilliant payoff. Chris Chibnall just wants to rewrite Doctor Who history. He just wants to have his face on every page so that he has had an impact. But he wants to make sure that his impact is everywhere. And he doesn't give a flying fuck about what anyone says. He doesn't care if it's bad. He doesn't care if it's an insult to fans. As long as he has made his way and slivered into the history books, who cares? Who actually cares? He doesn't. So why should we? I do have some happiness, though, in the sense, and it is happiness with some bittersweet. It's a bit bittersweet, to say the least. Happiness which is a bit bittersweet. That's what I'm trying to say. In the sense that Legend of the Sea Devils is officially the worst rated Doctor Who story ever. Hitting, what was it? 2.5 million. No other story has hit below 3 million. But Legends of the Sea Devil hit below 3 million. The worst rated before that, I think, was Battlefield. And, Battlefield wasn't even a bad story, It was just, unfortunately, towards the end of the Doctor Who classic era run. But, my God, Legend of the Sea Devils only got 2.5, I believe, was the estimate, million in terms of viewership. Let that be an insight to what people think. And, obviously, one thing to note is that it was poorly advertised. I'm almost confident the BBC had no faith in it. Let's be honest now. Poorly advertised, barely, promoted. BBC clearly had no care or thought or, hope towards it. But 2.5 million. How embarrassing must that be? And I wonder if Chibnall sees this. I wonder if Chibnall looks at the viewership and looks at the fan reaction. I wonder what he thinks. I wonder what he sees. Does he think that, maybe, just maybe, I made a mistake? Well, I already answered that question. He doesn't give a shit. He just, as long as he's in the history books, who cares? Who cares? He's made history. He's made Doctor Who history. But he's also ruined a lot of Doctor Who. He's ruined a lot of the lore. He has even ruined any chance that a female Doctor can ever really be in Doctor Who, because he's managed to fuck that up so badly that people are not going to look at Doctor Who and think, yeah, female Doctors can work. No, they're going to be reminded every time of Chibnall's era, and they're going to see what makes a really bad, Doctor, what makes Doctor Who suck, and they're going to blame it on that. Let's be honest now. But they're also going to blame Chibnall, and Chibnall is not going to be remembered fondly. as bad as the classic era may have gotten, the final series of the classic era, which was the Seventh Doctor series, was one of the best. And it ended on a high note. In fact, a lot of the problems that classic era had weren't necessarily always to do with writing. The Sixth Doctor's era was often blamed as what caused the downfall. But you also have to remember there was also, a BBC controller at the time who hated Doctor who wanted to get rid of it at any chance. At the end of the day, Doctor Who was being outclassed by other shows and other programs that were being released around the same time. It was being affected all around. This era, however, is being affected by bad writing. Like, I remember years ago, I hated Moffat because I thought his shows were awful. I thought Series 6, for example, was abysmal, and Series 7 was slightly better by like an inch or two, but overall wasn't brilliant. But in hindsight and rewatching Matt Smith's era, and even Peter Capaldi's, Peter Capaldi, his last season is phenomenal. And he has a lot of fantastic episodes. He's just had a really bad start. And Matt Smith's era, well, it started off strong, just went downhill very fast. But at least Moffat was able to keep some form of pace. At least he was able to make changes that were right without going too far. And, he did write some of the best stories out there, but he was also, constricted by a load of other things loads of other projects he was doing. Moffat may have been hit and miss, but when he hit well. When Chibnall hits, it's by accident. It's maybe a 7 out of 10 story at best. That's as far as I'll put it, But most of the time, it's below 3. It's 3 or below. That's how bad I find this era. I just hope to God that Russell T Davies saves Doctor Who in a way. I hope he makes changes. I hope he makes better stories. I hope things look up. I do have that bit of hope that Russell T Davies will do good. But my God, does he have a lot of work on his hands.